Hello, everyone. Welcome to EVTN News, your source for tracking. We don't track Vegano anymore. EVTN News, Eternal Vegano Television Network. It comes from, I don't know if it was Mike Lewis from Where Pachamama Is said something about that, but someone called EVTN News, they didn't like they didn't like the Catholicism being covered by EWTN, and so they called them EVTN, Eternal Vegan Television Network. So I took it. I I don't own the copyright, so um, someone could always buy the copyright for EVTN and force me to change the name of this news program. I don't know what I'd change it to though. But anyway, we can get started in Russia. So on this is a really kind of a crazy story. It's pretty long, but bear with me. I think you'll find it kind of entertaining, sad, whatever. On February 5th, Reverend Gregory Zwolinski, the former priest of Kirov, 950 kilometers northeast of Moscow, um, just told a lot of stories on a website. The post is highly critical of Archbishop Paolo Pezzi, age 64, the Italian-born head of the Moscow Archdiocese. Now, I believe most of the churches in Moscow, many of the churches in Moscow are Orthodox. Catholicism doesn't have, uh, Catholicism is not the popular religion there. But Reverend Zelensky recalls that on April 5th, 2024, about a year ago, he published on his website an interview with Cardinal Mueller, who criticized Fiducius Supplicans and showed it was incompatible with the Bible and the teaching of the Church. The next day, his Archbishop Pezzi called the priest on his mobile phone and asked, "Who gave you permission to publish this material?" The priest replied that he fully agreed with Cardinal Mueller's statement and would not remove the text. On May 26th, he published an interview with Bishop Athanasius Schneider, in which Schneider criticized Francis's LMNOP propaganda. And the next day, Father Zwolinski, received a document from the Moscow Curia in which Monsignor Pezzi ordered him to leave the parish and the Moscow Diocese within 30 days and return to Poland. Further, Zwolinski remembers on Christmas Eve 2014, so going 10 years back prior to that. After this Christmas Eve Mass in 2014, there was a snack for the faithful and opportunity to sing carols. As the last of the parishioners were leaving, the bell rang and a strange man about 40 to 45 years old came in around 9 p.m. Zwolinski invited him in thinking he might be looking for help, but the man introduced himself as a member of the local LMNOP club. He invited Zwolinski to the club because he had heard that Catholic priests in the United States visited such places. At the next meeting of priests in Moscow, Zwolinski asked to meet Archbishop Pezzi and told him about this. Pezzi allegedly replied, "It is normal for priests to go to such clubs." Zwolinski also accused Monsignor Pezzi of surrounding himself with LMNOPs. So it's not just the United States, obviously you knew that, but even in Russia, there is this archbishop who is Italian, and he just kind of probably runs people off to the Orthodox if he's gonna do those kinds of things. So that's yeah, that's how things are in Russia, and that's the state of the Catholic Church in Russia, I guess. Okay, so just kind of a side note here. Canada's new Prime Minister is Mark Carney. He claims to be Catholic, and he publicly declared on March 23rd his unreserved support for abortion, stating he absolutely supports a woman's right to choose, and will defend it proudly and consistently. And so he's echoing kind of shades of Biden, Pelosi, some of the most notorious politicians in the United States who now they you know wave their flags of their Catholic faith, but they don't promote the Catholic faith. They actually oppose very specific ideas, most likely or most commonly the slaughter of the unborn. And so here's another guy that's similar type of Catholic to Biden, but probably has a lot more recognition of where he's at and what day of the week it is and all that stuff. Can't say the same for Biden, and yeah, so this guy probably is a lot more with it, mentally, but at the same time, Now when you say they claim to be Catholic, so basically, what does it mean? Does it mean that, like, if you're baptized, if you're a baptized Catholic, that means you're a Catholic, right? So you can be Catholic, you're just a heretic. I think that's what it means, right? Because if you support the slaughter of the unborn, you're basically a heretic. Anyway, okay, and of course, Francis Watch has kind of slowed down quite a bit. Oh, was that last week where the Francis bought? Let me just give me 1 second here. I'm going to try to see if I can pull that up. I don't remember if I talked about it last week or not, but the Francis bought. Okay, let's see. The Francis bot has announced that Francis will be essentially imprisoned in the second floor apartment with only a few people permitted to see him to prevent infections. So he might be on hospice, but I don't know. Does anyone really know if that's going to be the case? But the fact is that he has visitors extremely limited, and so some of his handlers, whoever his primary handlers are limiting. Even I would say even cardinals, even powerful cardinals can't necessarily get in. So, while his health is supposedly improving, but no one really knows. No one can really say. Okay. On October 24th, Bishop Oswaldo Escobar of it's San Salvador, so it would be El Salvador, celebrated a Eucharist commemorating the 45th anniversary of the assassination of Archbishop Oscar Romero. The Eucharist was celebrated in the chapel of Hospitalet. It was celebrated in a chapel where the Archbishop Romero of San Salvador was assassinated. Several priests concelebrated. Also participating in the Eucharist were Neftali Ruiz, who calls himself, it's herself. This is actually wrong. So it was a woman who calls herself a bishop of the Old Catholic Church. Oh no, Neftali Ruiz, who calls himself a bishop of the Old Catholic Church, and a female Anglican minister. Okay, so the Neftali Ruiz was the Old Catholic cleric, and then the female Anglican minister wore an alb, stool, and a cross as if she were a bishop. The female Anglican preacher participated in the entrance procession and the homily. She also stood at the altar until the moment of communion. So, so she kind of concelebrated a Novus Ordo in El Salvador. So this is actually becoming more and more common, where these heretic bishops are letting women basically stand by the altar, and we can't stand for it. You can't accept it. You cannot go to a mass like that. It's just it's damaging to the faith. Okay, so back-to-back stories that are really interesting here. So many of you may be familiar with the Institute of Christ the King. It's a Latin Mass order that operates in a similar capacity to the FSSP. The Institute of Christ the King is, um, I think they're more like, I don't want to say, I don't know how to say this, but it's more like um, French, I guess. Like the seminarians have to learn French before they can start in the seminary. So it's yeah, it's targeted in France. But anyway, regardless, they have churches in the United States, and there's a lot of seminarians, regardless, that come from the United States too. And so Bishop Gregory Parks uh, of St. Petersburg, Florida, has converted the parochial church Epiphany in Tampa into a diocesan shrine effective July 1st. Now, this has been done in a few places in the United States in recent years. It's not anything, it's one bishop came up with it, and then several bishops followed suit. And this is another bishop, Bishop Parkes. So congratulations to him. The move followed a so-called careful study of Traditionis Custodes. The newly established shrine will be known as the Epiphany of Our Lord Shrine. It will be a place for traditionalists. Monsignor Parkes has entrusted pastoral care to the priests of the Institute of Christ the King, and so the priests will staff the shrine, and that's that. So very nice, very good, helping the Latin Mass community there. So congratulations to him, and I'm sure his parishioners are very grateful for him, for his for his accompaniment. They're grateful that he's not trying to crush them and ban them from the sacraments. So that's very nice of him to do that. Unfortunately, other bishops, may have a more hostile approach. And so that I saw that news over the weekend, and then just today I saw news about Institute of Christ the King, the same order. They have been kicked out of the Diocese of Oakland, California, which is really weird. Oh, Bishop Michael Barber, S.J., yeah, Jesuit. So no surprise there. So he has assigned, I'm reading from the Diocese of Oakland's website, and I can see the kind of, what would I say, sort of hostile tone. So it said, following an official visitation of the parish, Bishop Michael Barber, S.J., has assigned the responsibility of providing Mass in the extraordinary form of the Roman Rite to the pastor of St. Margaret Mary Parish in Oakland, effective April 20th, 2025. The Institute of Christ the King has long asked for, in quotes, their own church to celebrate extraordinary form masses rather than sharing a parish church. The Institute is now providing the extraordinary form mass in the Most Holy Rosary Chapel at St. Vincent's Home for Boys in San Rafael, and will seek a new location for this and other ministerial works in the very near future. Since the Oakland Diocese has enough properly trained clergy to provide the traditional Latin Mass of the faithful, Bishop Barber has requested the Institute of Christ the King leave St. Margaret Mary to find a more suitable setting for their apostolate. For the time being, the Institute will provide a priest to celebrate the regularly scheduled extraordinary form Mass at the Most Holy Rosary Chapel. So that's kind of interesting. But with it, so when the bishop bans the institute, with them probably goes the traditional sacraments, which is absolute disgrace that any bishop would ban the traditional sacraments of their own right, unless they don't belong to the Roman Rite, which there's certainly debate for that. And I wonder if the institute, because I'm reading through this, and I just wonder if they were really banished or if they are just moving somewhere else, and we'll seek a new location for this. So they're ministering for this St. Vincent's Home for Boys. I haven't looked into it too much, but I wonder if this is like expanding the Latin Mass in the diocese, because it says the diocese has enough properly trained clergy to provide the Latin Mass. So on the surface, that would appear to be positive. And did they get kicked out, or did they just get moved or relocated? Are they doing a mission? So I'm going to have to do a little bit more research, but it sounds a little bit, it's the tone sounds a little bit smug based on based on this statement, because they're just asking for a church. I mean, you probably have how many empty churches? So you can't provide them for the church, and they've been there since 2005, so 20 years, and you haven't given them a church? What's wrong with you? After Summorum Pontificum, and it's not just this bishop, because I don't think he's been there for 20 years, but after Summorum Pontificum, you didn't help him out? Come on, what's the problem? Like, that's kind of ridiculous, honestly. But again, I need to do a little bit more research on this before I can give you a full picture of what's going on. Were they kicked out, or were they just relocated? Is this a permanent plan? I mean, I don't know that anything's ever permanent per se, but is this sort of a long-term plan where they're going to assist at this St. Vincent's Home for Boys? I need to research that, see what they're all about. But if it's coming from the Institute of Christ the King, it's probably pretty decent, I think. Okay, and then the last story I have here is the Francis bot finally turned his, the Eye of Sauron, or the Francis bot, or whatever you want to call it, finally turned his eye to the United States. And so the Francis bot appoints its first bishop in the United States, or at least gives a promotion to its first bishop, and that is Bishop Michael McGovern. So Bishop McGovern entered Loyola University, Chicago in 1982. This is the Bernardine Network again. The Bernardine Network is basically getting every promotion now. I mean, it's not even funny. It's I don't know. It's predictable. McGovern entered Loyola Chicago University in 1982, and he earned his degree in 86. 4 years later, he decided to enter the priesthood and enrolled at University of St. Mary of the Lake in Mundelein, which is the notorious Bernardine Seminary, in 1990. And in 1994, McGovern was ordained a priest by Cardinal Bernardine himself. As you know, Bernardine requested that the Rainbow Men's Chorus sing at his funeral. That kind of shows you where he stood on things. And then on April 3rd, 2020, Francis appointed McGovern as Bishop of Belleville. Is it Belleville, Illinois? I'm trying to look here. The Diocese of Belleville. Yeah, Belleville, Illinois. Let me find this back here. Okay, yeah, so Belleville, Illinois, and his consecration took place July 22nd, 2020, with the principal consecrator being Cardinal Supich. So he's part of the Supich and Bernardine networks. And now the Francis Bot has appointed him the new Archbishop of Omaha, Nebraska. So I was reading a little bit, and one of his interviews for Belleville, he praised the one priest who is a fan of ecumenism. So this is what we're getting. We're getting ecumenical, synodal, Chicago, Bernardine Supich Network bishops. And it's not going to stop until the Francis Bot stops. And that could be a while. I mean, after all, Francis's health is improving every day, right? He can barely sign his name. He can't sign his name. That's what Kissy said. Can't even sign his name. So anyway, that's that. I think I pretty much covered. Oh no, there's probably heard the story about the Satanists at Kansas, at like a Kansas courthouse, Kansas City. Archbishop Naumann was really doing a lot of stuff in opposition to that. I think he was getting really creative, honestly. Archbishop Naumann wanted to sue he wanted to try to use legal means to obtain the Eucharist back that he said was stolen, and by the letter of the law, that sounds like an interesting case. And I think that Archbishop Naumann is really trying to do what he can against that. He also led some kind of event against the slaughter of the unborn, and so he's opposing Satanists and the evils of the slaughter of the unborn, which basically is related. And so Archbishop Naumann is doing what he can, and I'm interested to see what else he comes up with. I think he's past retirement age, and I'm sure the Francis Bot will very quickly retire him and replace him with a modernist, because Francis bishops are supposed to be, they're supposed to prioritize immigration, and Naumann is prioritizing Catholicism. So I expect him to be out pretty soon. Meanwhile, there's all these stunt immigration protests by the Francis bishops, and that's that. Okay, well, that's all I have for you today. So this has been EVTN News. Until next time, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.